river's running low, and the flame on our plates is the strongest fire we throw. Put out the fire, put out the fire. Echoes and rise, this is your hour. 7 boundaries broken, the earth pushed past the line. Climate, land, species, fresh water, chemicals, nutrients, oceans in decline. Not danger, disaster in real time. Put out the fire, ooh, put out the fire. Metafoodians rise, this is your power. And here in India, one truth stands the same. Milk is not just milk, dairy feeds the flame. Cows and methane, fields and forests turn to grain. Politics, culture, carbon, all wired to the same chain. Every cup of curd is heat in the air. Every block of butter is a forest repair. It's not a small habit, it's a planetary affair. Put out the fire, put out the fire. Echoes and rise, this is our hour. Energy fixes half the hurt, Dr. Rao made that clear. But food fixes the other half, the half that's burning here. Change the plate, change the land, change the future's atmosphere. Put out the fire, put out the fire. Metafoodians unite, this is your choir. Every millet, every fruit, every sapseed, every bean is water on the wildfire of a world we've never seen. Every oil-free bite is a river turning clean. This is not perfection, it's direction. Not pressure, but protection. A week of choices can cool a generation. A company's courage can ignite a nation. Put out the fire, ooh, put out the fire. Echoes and rise, this is your hour. Metafoodians unite, Metafoodians ignite, sharing love in the metazone, lighting the path to a cooler home. Put out the fire, ooh, put out the fire. Together we rise, together we inspire.
Welcome to the Planet B podcast, where truth, transformation, and faith converge. Join us as we flip the script on ecological despair, guided by Dr. Sailesh Rao's vision for a compassionate, rewilded vegan world. Let's begin the journey to the greatest transformation in human history.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of the Planet B podcast. Today, we'll be taking an in-depth look at how we use the earth. Dr. Rao, this is going to be a really fascinating episode.
Yeah, it's based on data from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So it is something that you can go verify yourself exactly how we use the earth. And I begin with a quote by Ted Perry that says, "This we know, the earth does not belong to humans. Humans belong to the earth."
I love that quote. So why is that quote so significant to Planet B?
Because we have to begin looking at it the other way. Because right now we think that the earth belongs to humans. We can grab whatever we want, take whatever we want, do whatever we want with it. And there are no consequences. And I'm saying, no, there are consequences to doing that. So we have to flip the script on that idea of enclosure. This is mine, that's yours. That sort of enclosure.
Yeah. So in the last episode, we talked about a little bit of how the Earth got to this stable state over the last 6,000 years with the agricultural revolution and the industrial revolution. And now here we are today with this huge issue of how humans, as you state, are really competing over resources when this is quite unnecessary. So, Dr. Rao, how do we use the Earth?
We use the earth in so many ways that are now responsible for causing this crisis that we are in. Okay. We have taken over 91% of the ice-free land area of the planet for our use.
Jeez.
Only 9% is original forest. Okay. That is the official record. And even within the 9%, I know that we have been doing a buzz cut on the natural forests, because the United Nations has a rule saying that any 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid with 10% tree cover is classified as a forest grid.
Seems a little fishy.
So corporations have been taking forests and then doing a buzz cut on the forest so that you leave 10% of the trees behind and then use the rest for extraction. Okay, so that the UN classification is still a forest.
It seems kind of like a Planet A ideology. Yes.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and you see that I was looking at the satellite pictures and I was saying, why the heck are we deforesting like this? And then it occurred to me, oh, because you're still classifying it as a forest because you left that green clump behind. So that's how we are. Hey, you can fool yourselves, you can fool the UN, you can fool people, but you cannot fool nature. Nature gives you consequences for your actions no matter what you do. So now if you look at the rest, 91%, how we use that 91%. We think that we are so big, right? There are 8 billion of us, there are too many of us. People get into all these stories about how numerous we are. But in reality, all our built land, all our cities and our railroads and our highways and our shopping centers, and all put together is only 1% of the ice-free land area of the planet.
Wow.
Okay. If you were to concentrate all the built land and put it in one spot, it will cover Madagascar. That's about it.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Right? 19% of the ice-free land area of the planet is deserts and mountains. So basically unused land. Okay? And some of the deserts, you could argue, used to be forests, they used to be green, and we desertified them. Okay? And so that's also due to the main use of the land. Okay, so I'll get to that. 22% of the ice-free land area of the planet is monocultured timber land. It's still classified as forests in the UN because it's just a tree cover. They're only looking at tree cover to say that's a forest. But it's basically monocultured. It's for timber, paper, and uses like that. So that's 22% of the ice-free land area of the planet. 37% is grazing land. And that's where our farmed animals are grazing. And then the remaining 12% is cropland. And so that's land we have cleared in order to grow crops for agriculture. And almost 2/3 of the cropland biomass. So we extract not only the grains from the crops, but also the crop residues. So 2/3 of that is going to feed our farmed animals.
Jeez.
Okay, so the primary use of the land on the planet is to grow farmed animals, not for human beings directly. And our farmed animals are only giving us 12% of the food we eat in terms of dry weight. Look at these statistics carefully, because you will see all kinds of different ways of expressing these numbers. Okay, I use the dry weight to dry weight. I say that for every 1 kg of food or 1 pound of food we get on our plate from animals, we had to feed the animals 39 kgs or 39 pounds
That's
of
shocking.
food. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's dry weight to dry weight comparison. Now, you may have heard that for every pound of meat, you had to feed the animal 10 pounds of grain. Okay, 1:10. Now, you have to understand how they're doing that. That's 10 pounds of grain alone, not all food.
Right.
Number one. Number two, they're taking the actual weight of the meat, which mostly is water. It's not the dry weight of the meat. Whereas a grain has no water in it. It's already dried out. So you're comparing wet weight with dry weight. That's how you get smaller numbers. I mean, this is all animal foods put together, which is eggs, dairy, and meat all put together. You look at the dry weight. Then for every pound of dry weight that we eat on our plates, you have to feed the animal 39 pounds of food in dry weight. Okay? So please don't get fooled by these apples to oranges types of comparisons that they do. Because the industry is very adept at trying to con us.
That's such a crazy number. I mean, it's almost unbelievable.
Well, when you think about it, the animals have to basically grow. Yeah, watching an animal grow, watching yourself grow, it's a slow process. It
Yeah.
takes a long time for it to grow. And you have to eat a lot of food to grow. Okay, because you have to eat a certain amount of food just to maintain your weight.
Right.
And then you have to eat more food in order to grow, right? And so most of what the animal eats comes out as waste,
Yeah.
right? In fact, if you look at the total amount of food we get versus the total amount of waste that comes out of the animal, there again, for every 1 pound of food we get from the animal was wasting 10 pounds of food.
So is that 10 pounds of poo to 1 pound of meat?
Exactly, right.
That now, how could anyone think that makes any sense at all?
Yes, there's 10 pounds of poo for every 1 pound of
And then the excuse they use is that that could be fertilizer. Oh, we've got all this fertilizer.
Yeah,
So silly.
yeah. And most of what animals eat goes out as CO2. Basically,
Right.
they're breathing it out because they're metabolizing it, okay, just to maintain their bodies. So 1/3 of what they eat goes out as metabolized CO2. So our land animals are giving us only 12% of the food we eat in terms of dry weight. Our fish is giving us 3% of the food we eat in terms of dry weight. 85% of the food we eat is already coming from plants. Okay? And to get that 85% of the food we eat, we are using roughly 6% of the land area of the planet.
So does that mean that when you say 85% of the food we eat, that would be like all of humanity combined,
Correct.
85% of the food of total humanity is vegan, essentially.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. 85% of the food we eat is already vegan. So most land we are using is for this animal food production. That's number one in terms of land use. The next is timber, right? So together we are using more than half, 56% of the land area of the planet, just for grazing our farmed animals and for timber. And if you include the cropland, it's 60%. total. Okay.
So much.
Yeah. So that's completely under our control, meaning we can choose to not to do that. We can choose to re-engineer that and make it better. So this is why every time we eat animals, we are choosing to continue destroying the planet. We are choosing to continue inflicting cruelty on the animals. Because by now we all know how cruel that system is. So it's a system that treats animals as if they're objects, that they have no feelings. We assume that they're like machines, right? And that's an old way of looking at animals. So as of 2012, even scientists have acknowledged that animals are conscious beings who have feelings, who have emotions, who have, they have similar lives as human beings, just as rich in terms of their sensory perceptions and their feelings. So I saw a poster carried by someone who said, all plants have protein, all animals have feelings, and all humans have options.
It's really good.
Yeah. Because it addresses why we think we have to eat animals, which is protein, that we need to eat animals for protein. And it addresses that animals are not objects, they're not machines, so they have feelings. And we have options. Because going from 85% to 100% using plants for our food is not such a big step.
No, not at all.
It's not at all
Not
a
at
big
all.
step. Yeah. And at the same time, you can address world hunger, you can address all the sustainable development goals, you can address all the planetary boundary transgressions, you can address animal cruelty, you can address human health, you can, my God, it's one simple step that addresses so many things simultaneously. This is why I call nature the perfect system design, because I haven't seen any other problem where I studied where one single thing would solve everything. Yeah, it's just incredible how the system is designed. It's fundamentally about love. Love for animals, love for all beings, love for your fellow human beings. Because when we eat animals, we are deliberately causing world hunger.
Right.
Right? Because we are telling those people who are going hungry, no, that food that you were supposed to eat, I'd rather give it to animals and then eat the animals.
It's almost as if they're not as important as. That's so sad, but true.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the truth of it. We are taking away food from hungry children because we think we need to eat animals in order for our well-being.
Right.
Okay. And that is drilled into our heads in school, in the education system. Yeah. And so it also has undertones of racism, of colonialism in the food system, because basically in colonialism, what is happening is that the colonizing force, the colonizing tribe, comes to the colonized tribe and says that your food is inferior to my food. Okay?
Right.
So you have to eat like we do. So you have to emulate us in every way possible, okay, in order to be accepted. So then we are making decisions not based on science and not based on what's available. We are making decisions based on just notions of superiority. Imagine in an environment where we got together and said, okay, what is the optimum way to eat for all of us? It cannot be just one tribe, whatever the tribe was doing is optimum for everybody, no matter where they are. You are doing that because you happen to be stuck in Northern Europe, where you couldn't grow crops all the time.
Right.
So that's why you are eating that way. Now you go and colonize a land where they're growing crops year round, and you tell them you have to eat meat, and they say, no, it's not true.
Makes no sense.
It makes no sense, right? So it's like imposing a one single culture on everybody is going to cause problems. It's going to make no sense. And this is why the food system not only has social injustice built in, it also has racism built in, it also has colonialism built in, because it's just mindlessly adopting something instead of thinking about it and figuring out what is the right way to do things. And
Right.
that's what we are called to do today. Re-examine everything. Okay? Re-examine everything, knowing that you have to solve a problem. And then, use science to figure out how to solve that problem properly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I think we'll get into the solution more next chapter. Is there any final statement you'd like to say on?
The enormous redundancy in how we have been using the earth is also the seed of a solution
Hmm,
for all our problems. And know that that solution is within reach for all of us.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rao. And this is almost a setup episode because we talk about the solution in depth in our next episode, which is chapter 15, the vegan rewilding solution. So we hope people join us for that as well. So again, we encourage everyone to read the book. There is a Planet B. It's fantastic. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you again for our next episode. Thank you all so much for joining us.
This has been a podcast from Planet B, where animals are not production units. If you haven't moved here yet, we thank you for visiting.
Hello, Barb. I saw your comment in the chat. You're muted.
Okay, now I can unmute. Yeah, I just happened to be looking that up, the 39 kilogram, trying to do the different, Google it different ways, but I was trying to be really accurate and AI and all the sites below just kept coming up with, they'd come up with different numbers, but they kept saying, "Oh, it's not that much. It's not that much." And then I would notice that there was something different that they were giving me. It wasn't the equivalent of what you were doing. And I just knew that it was different. Though I can't tell you now exactly what it was, but yeah, it was starting to bother me. And then I started Googling down or scrolling down thinking, well, let's see if there's something supporting our side. And it was just meat group after meat group, these organizations, and all of them were responding and trying to make it look like it wasn't that serious, and that,
Right.
it's just a small amount. So I thought
Yeah.
it was kind of fascinating. So I'm glad that you talked about this today, because, just kind of like answering what I was trying to look up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We all have to learn how to read block diagrams because
Mhm.
the data is there.
Yeah.
I mean, if the data is there in spreadsheets, then you have to look, then you have to kind of figure out how to get the results out of that spreadsheet. But there's one block diagram that I took from the IPCC, from the fifth assessment report, that has all of this coded in there, if you
Oh,
know how to read it. So
oh,
I'll show you that block diagram. See that? Okay, let me just get to. So the numbers this is the land on the left-hand side. You can see how the land is broken up into cropland and different kinds of land, grazing land, and so on. So those are the numbers I used in the diagram we were showing before.
Okay.
And these arrows, the thicker they are, the more stuff that's coming out of that land. Okay, so this has 6.36, this is 3.87. This is the total amount of stuff that's coming out of that. And this is the animal block. Okay, this is the animal block. And you can see from this, the animal block is getting all the big arrows coming into them. And this is the output, which is what we are taking from the animals. And you can see how thin that is.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's the total amount of food, and that's 0.26. Okay. So this total is 7.28. This is 0.26. So that comes into the food processing block, okay, where you get the 0.26 from animals and you also get the 1.52 from plants. So that total is 1.78, of which 0.5 gets wasted and 1.28 goes into our plate, the food intake block.
Wow.
Okay. So the food intake block has 1.28 coming from this food processing block and then 0.26 coming from directly from the cropland. So that's all the fruits and vegetables that we're eating. And this is all the grains and meat and dairy and eggs put together. Okay. So that's this. So now you say, okay, of this 1.78, there's 1.28 going in there and 0.5 being wasted. So I just said, okay, I'm going to proportionately, have the same proportion of waste and proportion of food. So that's why I came up with 0.19, because they didn't break that up for me.
Okay.
And now this block diagram was in the 5th assessment report of the UN IPCC, and it disappeared in the 6th assessment report. So they felt like it's too much information, you don't want to update people. Because you can deduce everything from this. So when I said for every 1 pound of food, 1 kg of food we are eating, the animals are pooping 10 kgs of food. That comes from this block. You see how much of it is going out? That's to the waste. That's the waste.
Yeah. Wow.
And this waste is actually 12 times the food we are getting. Now I'm only looking at this waste, and there's also a little bit of waste here. Now there's a little arrow that goes back from the waste to the animals, and that's 0.26. So that is, from animal poop, we are somehow getting animal food. Yeah, that's shown in the block diagram. Yeah. So if you see this block diagram and if you try to, if you figure out how to read it, you will get everything that I'm telling you.
Okay, that's great.
Right.
That's
so you
great.
can see from the block diagram also there is this thin line going to this other block, other industries and manufacturing. That's the skin and the blood and the bones that go to make leather and shoes and so on, right? Glue. There are all kinds of rendering operations that go on with the animals. And that's in this block. And that's 0.14 billion tons. So there's 0.14 billion tons for other products, other manufacturing, and 0.19 billion tons for our food, which means that the skin and the blood and the bones is almost as much as the meat we're getting from the animals that we're using. Okay. This is why if we don't eat animals, but we still wear the leather, you're not going to change this block much. So I say, if my goal is to eliminate this block, because that's how we are going to get the dividend of the land use, then you have to go vegan, not just plant-based, meaning you have to stop using animals for any purpose whatsoever. Otherwise, just like they grow mink foxes just for their skin, they would grow cows just for their skin and call it really expensive, right? Leather. because it'll become expensive. Right now, cheap leather comes from dairy cows because
Interesting.
dairy cows are being paid for by the dairy consumer every day. So the cow is all paid up by the time she's slaughtered and turned into leather and meat and beef. So cheap beef and cheap leather comes from dairy cows.
Okay. See, I always thought it was from baby. I hate even saying it, but I thought that the expensive leather, or no, maybe it's the soft leather or something they
Soft leather
say.
comes from calves, yeah,
Yeah,
baby
yeah,
calves. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Um, I did want to ask you one other thing because I didn't have a chance to grab it in the chat. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about the memorial trees, and you said, I think it was your daughter belongs to some organization, and you gave the name, and I didn't write it down, and I was going to grab it from the chat, and then I didn't get it. So if you remember offhand.
What was that about?
It was like memorial trees, planting
Ah.
trees. Yeah.
Yeah, my niece. Yeah,
Your
my
niece.
niece.
Okay.
Yeah, it's greener.gifts.
Greener dot gifts.
I'll put that link in the
Okay.
chat.
Okay.
GRREENR dot gifts.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I'm gonna mute myself so if somebody else wants to ask a question, they can ask.
Yeah, just click on the link in the chat because the
Okay.
spelling has to be correct.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Brittany.
So looking at your diagram, and I was thinking that even though the animal agriculture, if it's gone, would increase available land by 40% around
Mhm.
there.
Right.
I did see the part about the forestry there, the logging part. So I
Mhm.
was wondering if that's probably going to be around if we get away from, if we go towards the vegan world, are we going to still
Right.
possibly see that? And is that going to be like the biggest issue in involving land or in a vegan world in general?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about that land, what it's being used for, there's a lot of timber for building big houses, and essentially, those houses don't last for too long. And so um, I have a friend who has been trying to convince Californians to build houses in steel as opposed to wood because it doesn't burn. You can make houses that are fireproof relatively. And he's running into a lot of opposition from the timber industry because they survive by selling you wood. So you have a system in which the incumbents are trying to preserve everything that they're doing and trying to grow as well, right? And this is why you are using so much stuff that it's unnecessary. If you had to just put everything on the table and say, how would you re-engineer shelter, you wouldn't build it the way we are building today. It's just, it's old technology, literally old technology. It's like asking people to still do transportation with horses and buggies. It's the equivalent of that in the building industry. So we have, different ways of using materials and minimizing the use of the earth, if that's our objective function. Okay. If our objective is to keep growing every little industry that wants to grow, then you're going to get the mess that we are in. So anyway, that 22% also could become available for regeneration. forests. A lot of that could
Yeah.
become available.
Isn't a lot of it due to animal agriculture, due to the deforestation of it, or is that included in your 40%?
Yeah, the analysis we did, I wrote a paper with the professor from the University of Illinois, Atul Jain. And the analysis we did was we took that 37% of the grazing land, and then we went into the history database of the environment and looked up for each grid. We looked up whether it was a grazing land at that time in 1800 or was it a forest in 1800. And there's a lot of that. 41% of the grazing land used to be forests in 1800. Okay. So at that time, when the analysis was done in 2015, we had only data until 1800. Now we have data up to thousands of years ago, but we haven't gone back and looked at what was it out for the rest of the land, because the rest of the land was deforested before 1800, if it was deforested. So anyway, 41% of the land used to be forest in 1800. And so what we did in the model was to just replace each grid with the corresponding forest grid if it was a forest in 1800. So on 41% of the land, when we did that, and then we added up the numbers to see how much extra carbon got sequestered by just replacing the grid with the corresponding forest grid. And the extra carbon that got sequestered was greater than the amount of carbon we have added to the atmosphere since 1750. So that's the paper we presented at the AGU fall meeting in 2015, December. And a lot of scientists, climate scientists, came to me after that and said, yeah, we know this. It's it's not that hard to do, right? So you can always go replace grids in that model. They said, we know this, but it will never happen. And the reason they were saying it would never happen is because they were serving steak as the main course in the banquet dinner. Okay, so they couldn't imagine it changing at that time. But I could imagine changing, right? I could imagine it changing because I've gone through this before. So it reminded me of how when I was working on the internet, when I told people, hey, if you just go from analog signal processing to digital signal processing, you can increase the speed tenfold and make it more robust. And they all said, you're nuts. It'll never happen, right? But then in 7 years, it happened. And the internet took off. So the same way I say, it's been 10 years since that meeting I went to in 2015. And it's going to happen because that solution is staring at us in the face.
So kind of lost between if the forestry part, the logging part is part of the agricultural part. If it's different, I mean, it's separated, but
it's separated
are they
out.
intertwined in some way?
They're kind of intertwined because, if there is anything growing in the ground, I'm sure the animals, like in Arizona, I live in Arizona, and in Arizona, it's an open grazing state. So what that means is the cows are allowed to go anywhere and eat anything, and you're not allowed to stop them if it's public land, right? And so if there's anything growing in the ground, obviously there are no other animals there because if you have the same tree growing, unless a bird only eats that particular food, it's not a good place for animals to live. So a monocultured forest is not really a forest. It's lacking a lot of the animals. It's like the equivalent of crops on land, right? So, but on that ground, if there's grass growing, I'm sure they're going to allow the cows to come and eat. In Arizona, I know that if I go off the beaten track, right? It's like once Highway 10 was closed and we had to take a side road to complete our travel, and you see cows walking around, and crossing the road, and they say, "Watch out for cows." And you see all these cows in a cars waiting for the cows to cross.
Well,
And
that's
85% of the water use in Arizona is for animal agriculture. It's a southwestern desert, right? And that water is coming from Lake Mead, so it's like we have engineered all these systems to just waste the food. I mean, to waste the water, to waste the resources, to grow animals. Yeah, I don't know. Did I answer your question, Brittany?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of data when you look at the vegan part of it that is causing problems. It's like you cannot take any of this at face value. Is kind of a repeating
Yeah.
pattern
Yeah.
that when you take out the animal, it's only when you take out animal agriculture will you truly see true numbers. So it makes it
Correct.
very
Yeah.
hard.
Correct. Yeah. So I try to do
Okay.
the best I can, with whatever data I have. Sorry. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I was gonna
Yeah.
say I'll give it to Rebecca.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what were you gonna say?
Now I was going to say, I mean, I know, I try to do the best I can, and typically the numbers you come up with by doing this in a system that's already um, heavily biased, in the other side, is that you're coming up with some kind of lower bound. So if you look at Goodland and Annan's paper, and they were saying it's a lower bound, right? Their estimate is the lower bound. They know it is more than that. Now think of the biomass or the weight of the animals. The animal weight it's already like 5 times the weight of all the wild animals that lived 10,000 years ago, the weight of our farmed animals. And they're all very young animals, which means they're eating double their weight. So they're eating the amount of food that we're extracting for the animals is roughly 10 to 12 times the amount of food that all wild animals were extracting from the earth 10,000 years ago. This is why the waste that the animals are producing it's very hard for the planet to process that. It's like 10x what it was used to processing. And that waste becomes poison, literally. This is why it's poisoning the rivers, it's poisoning the oceans, and so on. Yeah. And so because the animals are taking so much food, you can imagine that a lot of the land is being used. It's just being classified as, oh, this is timberland. So let's pretend the animals are not eating anything there, and the animals are going all over the place and they're eating everything that they can. And the Bureau of Land Management goes and shoots wild animals if anytime a rancher calls them and tells them that this particular animal is coming and eating my food, the food that I was using for my cattle. So they go and shoot that animal. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Thank you. I have looked up, if you look up on Google, mountains of manure, it looks like mountains in the background, not just little hills and piles of manure. It looks like mountains of manure. It's amazing. I wanted to say that a few years ago, maybe just a couple of years ago, there was a man, a millionaire man, who bought a pine forest, 80,000 acres in Florida, to clear the land so that he could have grass-fed beef. So that's how, when I look at that chart, I think about the forest part, and how it depletes each time forests are cleared. It goes into that the grass-fed, or something like that. So it's getting smaller and smaller because of that. And I wanted to say that is, when you're quoting that chart, it's ice-free land.
Correct.
And also, I wanted to ask you to clarify that 39%, as I understand it, I want to ask you, is cannot all go back to forest. It's only 40% of that 39%, is that correct? And the rest of it may be natural grasslands or something else. Is that
Right,
correct?
right. Yeah. So
Okay.
we have to look at what was there, a few hundred years ago when the ecosystem was stable. Okay. And try to restore that stability in the system. So that's how I would design it. If I was told, how would you do this? I would try to go back to a stable state that we know existed and try to restore the ecosystems that used to be there. Right. Now, 41% of it was forest in 1800. We know that. But if you go to 1700, maybe it is 50%. Okay. That's what I mean. You have to go back and see what was really there in each grid. And some of that could have been prairies, some of that could have been mangroves. So whatever it was, you have to try and restore that, because that's how you try to get back to the state that used to be stable. Because we have done so many things and it's now, spiraling in the wrong direction. So I know that it's going towards an unstable state, which I don't know if it is even going to have a stable temperature, right? So as a system engineer, and if you ask me to stabilize it, I would say go back to the stable state that used to be there and see if we can restore all the ecosystems that used to be there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jenny.
Hello. So I guess I just have more of a discussion question, like something I've been thinking about. So, I was just thinking, like, wonder if there's like opportunity to go into like elementary schools and like do a demo or presentation. Um, because I think it would make sense to a lot of kids if it was, presented in a kid-friendly manner. But I was kept thinking about it because I grew up in Michigan and I went to like public school, and I like remember in elementary school we had like a an assembly, and there was a candy company that came in and was like, if you sell this candy, if you sell this many dollars, then you get to pick like prizes from like this section in the catalog. And like this was a Michigan owned candy company. So I feel like it had nothing to do like on a federal level. They just like, I don't know, like convinced the school to like let them come in. But it was like a big thing because then you wanted the toys from the catalog. So I guess my point was like, I feel like that candy place was not like government sponsored, although I have no idea if the elementary school got like a kickback by like the number of sales that, kids did.
Right.
But I was just thinking from like on this topic, like would it even be possible to go into like, publicly funded schools, or like, I mean, or like, do you have to get like approval from like the district on like criteria of like, we can only teach this, not that. Um, it was just kind of
Yeah.
something that like came to my mind as we were like going through the diagrams today. And so I just wanted to like hear your thoughts or like see
Yeah.
what you knew.
Yeah. Most schools, you need to get approval from the school
Mm.
to go in. And usually, if you know a teacher there or something like that, you have an inroad, you can come in. And like I tell the story of what happened to at my granddaughter's school, where I was asked to come in and talk about veganism, and I did.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, this was 2016, I think. Yeah, 2016. So 10 years ago. And the teacher, uh, just gave me permission to come to her class and speak about veganism,
Oh.
because my granddaughter had received um, a necklace as a gift from someone that said vegan on it.
Oh.
So she was doing a show and tell on that, right?
Okay.
So she said, "Grandpa will tell you what that means." And I asked them, you know, if you see a bunny rabbit hopping into this room, how many of you would go and play with the rabbit? They all said, oh, we will all go play with the rabbit. I said, how many of you would go and hurt the rabbit? They said, oh, we would never hurt the rabbit. And I said, then that means you're all vegan. So
Yeah.
that's what veganism is. It's just you don't hurt animals when you don't have to.
Mm.
So it went very well. Now they understood what it was. And so now they, saw it as nothing foreign to them.
Yeah.
Right? But then that evening, my wife got a call from the principal saying, tell your husband never to do that again.
I was
Because-
wondering if you would have gotten a follow-up call. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because apparently the kids went home and told the parents, I'm vegan. And the parents all freaked out.
Oh, I see.
And-
Okay.
And they called the principal and complained and so on. So anyway, that was an inroad, It was just,
Yeah.
I realized
right.
it's just, if you know the teacher and the teacher invites you, you can go in and talk.
I see.
Right? But the story actually ends well because that teacher asked me to come back and talk about India to the kids.
Oh, okay.
Because she said that the kids had a good rapport with you, so why don't you come and talk about India? And then the principal said, it's okay, you can come and talk about India, but tell him never to mention the word vegan. I said, okay, I won't. I promised to do that. And so I went there with my PowerPoint slides to talk about India and all these pictures of India. And I was setting up in the class, and the principal walks in to make sure that I don't talk about India. Talk about veganism. But the kids surround me, and the only thing they asked me questions about was veganism.
Wow.
Because they knew, they see me as this vegan grandpa who came. And so they were curious, and they were complaining about their parents, saying they're not letting me be, they're forcing me to eat and all this, right? And the principal realized I could do nothing about it, that it was the kids who were initiating the conversation. So I spent, I only talked about India and I left. But then the principal watched What the Health, the documentary that we did in
I see.
2017, and she went vegan.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Oh, fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. So it had a very happy ending because the principal went vegan, and now she was on the inside,
Yeah,
trying to figure
right.
out how to get parents to go vegan.
Okay, so maybe it sounds like maybe it's on like a principal by principal basis, or I wasn't sure like what kind of came down from the government, like because it's public schools. So,
Right. Well, if the government says only corporations are allowed, people are going to protest, right? So they don't say that.
Yeah, fair point. Right.
So there is some leeway for you to get in. And so long as your intentions are right, I say go for it. Right?
Yeah.
See what happens. See what happens. And that's what I did. I just went for it.
Yeah.
And this is what happened. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Thanks for sharing.
Sure thing. Yeah. All right. Any more questions? If not, as always, thank you very much for stimulating conversation at the end of this. I'm enjoying the conversations more on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Rao. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
The house is burning, but we're still sitting in the glow. Phones charged, lights on, pretending we don't know. But the forest is silent, the river's running low, And the flame on our plates is the strongest fire we throw. Put out the fire. Put out the fire. Echoes and rise, this is your hour. 7 boundaries broken, the earth pushed past the line. Climate, land, species, fresh water, chemicals, nutrients, oceans in decline. Not danger, disaster in real time. Put out the fire. Ooh, put out the fire. Metafoodians rise, this is your power. And here in India, one truth stands the same. Milk is not just milk. Dairy feeds the flame. Cows and methane, fields and forests turn to grain. Politics, culture, carbon, all wired to the same chain. Every cup of curd is heat in the air. Every block of butter is a forest repair. It's not a small habit, it's a planetary affair. Put out the fire. Put out the fire. Echoes and rise, this is our hour. Energy fixes half the hurt, Dr. Rao made that clear. But food fixes the other half, the half that's burning here. Change the plate, change the land, change the future's atmosphere. Put out the fire. Put out the fire. Metafoodians unite, this is your choir. Every millet, every fruit, every sapseed, every bean is water on the wildfire of a world we've never seen. Every oil-free bite is a river turning clean. This is not perfection, it's direction. Not pressure, but protection. A week of choices can cool a generation. A company's courage can ignite a nation. Put out the fire. Ooh, put out the fire. Echoes and rise, this is your hour. Metafoodians unite, Metafoodians ignite, sharing love in the meta zone, light in the path to a cooler home.